I'm going to go ahead and call the City Council regular meeting for Tuesday, May 21st, 2019 to order. Madam City Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Mayor Christy Malchow.
Present.
Deputy Mayor Karen Moran.
She's been excused.
Councilmember Tom Hornish.
Present.
Councilmember Jason Ritchie. Present. Councilmember Chris Ross.
Present.
Councilmember Pamela Stewart.
Here.
Councilmember Ramiro Valderrama.
Present.
Okay. Madam City Clerk, we do have a quorum. Councilmember Valderrama, would you say the Pledge of Allegiance for us,
Thank you.
please? Thank you.
Please rise for the saying of our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, I'd entertain a motion for approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor of approval of the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, by a vote of 6-0, the agenda is approved. Before we jump into public comment, I wanted to take the opportunity to introduce our new city manager. This is his first meeting. This is Rick Rudimenkin. He has come to us from New Mexico. We are very excited to have him with us. So if you get an opportunity during the break, you might want to introduce yourself to him. So thank you for being here.
Thank you, Mayor. Council members, appreciate it very much.
Absolutely. Lita, do we have anyone signed up for public comment? Okay, Mary Wichter. Actually, I didn't read the little part above that. While Mary's making her way up, come on up, Mary. This is an opportunity for the public to address the council. 3-minute limit per person or 5 minutes of representing the official position of a recognized community organization. If you'd like to show a video or PowerPoint, it must be submitted or emailed by the end of business day at 5 p.m. to the city clerk, Melanie Anderson at manderson@sammamish.us. Please be aware council meetings are videotaped and available to the public.
Hello, my name's Mary Wichter, and I live at 408 208th Avenue Northeast in Sammamish. And I believe you just passed the agenda, but we were hoping that you would be able to do a small edit for the consent.
So the consent comes later,
Okay.
and we'll approve the consent, and that's probably
Awesome,
where it
'cause
gets
there's
pulled.
one item on there. There's just one correction. So tonight I wanted to speak briefly on, this is in Title 24, but it's not part of what's getting repealed or replaced, so it's not part of the public hearing. It's called Basin Plans, and it's under SMC, Sammamish Municipal Code 24.20. And I just wanted to remind you that there are basin plans that were adopted from King County. The original one was 92, 93, 94 was the finalized version, and that's East Lake Sammamish Basin Plan. And then the second one is Issaquah Creek, and I honestly have not read that one, so I'm not familiar with it. And I just wanted to give you a map about it. So on the back side of the text sheet is what the East Lake Sammamish Basin Plan had identified in the 1994 final version. And then if you compare that to the color page that was taken from a draft version of the 2016 Stormwater Comprehensive Plan that was adopted at the end of 2016 and became effective in 2017, you'll see that the whole purple area is mostly the East Lake Sammamish Basin Plan. So that whole purple area drains westward. So about 3/4 of the city drains to Lake Sammamish, and I think that's important to know. And today, it's only 2/3 of the city that drains because Issaquah in 2016 became part of the city, so it didn't change the drainage, it just added a little bit more square miles to the city. So it went from about 3/4 of the city to about 2/3 of the city to drains to Lake Sammamish because Issaquah, Klahani drains to Issaquah. So I just wanted you to know that. Also, I think you have excellent stormwater staff and consultants working on stormwater things for June 3rd and June 4th upcoming. But I also did learn from Tawny Dalza, who's the Senior Stormwater Program Manager, when I had met with her one time. She said that the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System Phase 2 permits that the city has to have for stormwater, that those will be requiring that cities do basin planning. It will no longer be optional. So like the Zaccoos Basin Plan that's upcoming and will be looked at throughout the year and probably adopted, that it will be a requirement type thing. And whenever that is adopted, that's when I think this should be moved to whatever title or code should be done. And this, the only other thing, since there isn't public comment before 6/3, you'll probably be receiving several emails in the meantime, so you'll have information for that study session. And then the other thing I had been told by staff when I went to stormwater meetings and basin plan meetings is that the Zaccoos Basin Plan is supposed to be sort of the footprint or the template or the process by which basin plans are going to be done. So we want to make sure that that is done as best as you would want to have a template, because Laughing Jacobs would be next and then continuing onward from that. So just wanted to give that general input today.
Thank you. Next, I have Nimsha Thakur.
Hello, City Council. My name is Namisha Tucker, and I'm a 7th grader at Englewood Middle School.
Hello, my name is Mandira Ganti, and I'm a freshman at Redmond High School.
We are both members of Sustainability Ambassadors. Sustainability Ambassadors is a nonprofit organization based in King County with the mission of empowering youth to catalyze community sustainability. The organization provides youth in King County with professional training in what we like to call the 4 Ps: policy analysis, performance assessment, project management, and public speaking. Today, we are here to invite you to an event centered around environmental sustainability and involving sustainability ambassadors. This event is our annual LWSD Community Sustainability Summit hosted by Sustainability Ambassadors on May 29th.
This will be our 4th Community Sustainability Summit, which will be facilitated by student ambassadors like me and hosted at Microsoft. This is our 4th year in a row partnering with Microsoft for this event, and we're excited to make it our best one yet. The goal of the summit is to convene passionate student leaders in the Lake Washington School District with key stakeholders in our community, including business, city and county staff, school board, and city council, to collaborate and share successes in driving sustainability in the greater Lake Washington District community. We'd like to formally invite every one of you to attend this event, to share all the amazing progress that Sammamish has made regarding sustainability goals, and what exciting next steps the city will take for the remainder of 2019 and the start of 2020.
As always, we're excited to see Sammamish represented at our community summit and look forward to seeing all of you there. Registration links and other information for the summit are in an email I sent yesterday. Thank you for listening. We look forward to seeing you all on the 29th from 2 to 5:30 p.m.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to address the council? Oh, yes, go ahead. Sorry.
I just wanted to thank you, ladies, and give a real shout out to our sustainability ambassadors. These kids are amazing, so anyone who has the opportunity to attend, if you want information, you can come ask me. I've been participating with them over the last year and a half. These kids do great work. They get work done. There are some amazing projects that have been done at the schools around the school district that these were projects led and driven by the students, and they got the adults to get up and get moving and get some stuff done. So hats off to you ladies, and to all the sustainability ambassadors, and anyone who can attend, you really should. It's an amazing thing to see. We've got elementary school students all the way through seniors, and everybody's engaged all day with just great ideas and great passion. So thank you.
Hello, City Council. My name is Paul Stickney. I'm at 22626 Northeast Inglewood Hill Road. Just a couple extemporaneous comments here. At last night's Citizens for Sammamish meeting, it was a couple hours long, and it was really excellent, including just an extraordinary history lesson from Claradel Shed that was impromptu. She came to the meeting late and had a poster, and that woman's knowledge and passion for getting her wraps done is just extraordinary. I mean, it's beyond extraordinary. Anyway, at that meeting, there were a lot of topics chatted about last night. And a central theme that I picked up on many topics is people really care and want to preserve our community character and what we have here. And at the same time, there's a real concern, call it a fear, over outside influence from the region and lots of forces that may try to take the cities in ways it, does not go. I agree with those two sentiments. This morning, I read the most recent Strong Towns article. And if you haven't been to strongtowns.org, it's an amazing site. I've sent a couple articles to the council and the planning commission. Just so happened that the lead, one of the analysts for Strong Towns, I think his name is Daniel Hedges, had a headline that shook me to my core. It said, "I love my city, I fear for my city." And it talked about how many cities across the country, people love what they have and they're afraid of change. And the core of this argument is, and not argument, it was more a discussion, a analysis, a critique. It said, turn fear into opportunity. Seize the future. Manage your own outcomes. And a book I'm reading that's huge, and Commissioner Crandall told me about it. It's by E.M. Reese, who went to high school with Larry in Columbia Falls, Montana. It's called The Shape of the Future. Extraordinary book. If you think some of the things I've turned in are somewhat dense and compact, this is about 700 pages of that. But he talks about seizing the future and having a mix of your own self-interest, your enlightened household self-interest, and enlightened community self-interest. And I think it's time to seize the future, take charge of the shape of what we want the city to be, have discussions, to get that going, and get that as a common focus that we can all rally behind and take our future in our own hands.
Thank you, Paul.
James Eastman, vacant property along 196th Avenue. Saw a new city manager today, wanted to be the first to welcome him. I think I'm probably on my 25 speech pin. Paul Stickney, I think he's probably at 50, and I think Mary might be at 100, so I think maybe Mary needs... Well, one of them needs a proclamation honoring them. I still got a few more years to go, but I actually spent some time in Eddy County. Had I known that this was your first night, I would have prepared a presentation, but I'm going to just try to verbally help you bridge the gap. So when you hear the word kokanee, think prairie chicken. Yeah. I saw on the city website, it said, join us at our annual kokanee fry count. That is not a count of how much fried kokanee you can eat. That's like us going to Carlsbad and saying, hey, we want prairie chicken on the restaurant menu. So those are like fighting words. Mary's already talked to you about a basin plan. That is not how much oil we can get out of the ground. That is how we get the stormwater to Lake Sammamish. You're going to hear about all kinds of sub-areas. When I was in Carlsbad, we had, well, not too many. We had places like Whip and Potash and North Loving and Pecos. Most of the places didn't even have cities around them. We just named them after the roads. China Draw, Battle Axe, Roadrunner, all these crazy places. Here we have Inglewood, Tamarack, Klahani, Highcroft. You're going to hear over and over again. That is a place that we took all the trees out, and you'll never ever hear the end of that. Timberline. We have them all. There we have hummocks. I don't know if anybody on our council knows what a hummock is. Here we have erosion hazards near sensitive water body overlays. A hummock is sand mountains caused by erosion that you have to rebuild under construction. Here we try not to create any erosion. What else? You have archaeological digs. I did a project there. We did transmission line from Hobbs to Carlsbad. And we're tasked of having two archaeologists, whatever, on site at all times, going ahead of our construction crews. We found 30,000 artifacts, very serious in the state of New Mexico, and they actually cataloged them and shipped them to Santa Fe in the Natural History Museum. I think they went back all the way to 8,000 BC, arrowheads, all kinds of stuff. Here we have SEPA, which is the State Environmental Policy Act. So excited to have you here. Welcome. Hope you're enjoying your time here in the city. Thanks.
Mr. Eastman, that was one of your better public comments. That was that was fun.
Yes.
Is there anyone else who would like to address the council? Okay. Seeing none, I would entertain a motion on the consent calendar.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Councilmember Ross.
Yeah, I'd like to pull item 7.
Okay. We will pull item number 7 from consent. We will tuck that under unfinished business. So now, all those in favor of the approval of the consent calendar as amended, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, by a vote of 6-0, the consent calendar is approved as amended. Next, we have a proclamation. This is our proclamation for LGBT Pride Month. We are honored to have Beata Baker here that is going to read our proclamation for us.
Put a little staging first.
Cover the timer, you can go longer.
There's no time for a proclamation.
From the top, proclamation of the lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender, LGBT, Pride Month, June 2019. Whereas our nation was founded upon the declaration that all people are created equal, that life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness are among the inalienable rights of every person, and that each person shall be accorded the equal protection of the law. And whereas the LGBT community has made great strides forward, but equality, inclusion, and acceptance have not yet been fully achieved, we must practice these values and teach them to future generations. And whereas the city of Sammamish is committed to fostering diversity and inclusion, and whereas on June 28th, 1969, patrons of the Stonewall Inn in New York City rose up and resisted harassment that had become all too common for members of the LGBT community. Out of this resistance, the LGBT rights movement in America was born. During LGBT Pride Month, we commemorate the events of June 1969 and commit to achieving equal justice under law for LGBT Americans. Now, therefore, it is resolved that Mayor Christy Malchow and the Sammamish City Council do hereby proclaim June 2019 as Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, and Transgender Pride Month in the city of Sammamish. And we encourage all residents to celebrate the progress within our culture toward justice, equality, and full civic recognition for LGBT persons, and to join us in the fights that remain to be won. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Beata. Sharon, did you want a photo real quick?
She took a couple.
She did?
Yeah,
Okay,
she did.
What do we do? Oh, okay. Want me to be behind the thing? Beata, why don't you grab the actual copy? Oh, okay. Ooh, fancy. Like here? Yeah, she's good. Thank you, Beata. Okay. Can I leave this, or are you going to need the timer? We do have a public hearing, so yes, we will need the timer. Okay, so next on our agenda, we have a public hearing. This is to consider an ordinance to adopt a new SMC Title 24A, Comprehensive Plan and Development Regulation Amendment Procedures. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor, council members. I'm going to turn it over to Jeff from our staff, and he'll be able to give you the presentation.
All right. Thank you, Mr. City Manager, and welcome. Good evening, Council. Jeff Thomas with Community Development, and sitting to my right is Miriam Leitner, Senior Management Analyst with the department as well. Last week, May 14th, staff presented the Planning Commission recommendation to you in a study session, and we also presented some additional changes that we were trying to remediate based on some version control issues we had earlier in the legislative review process. So what we've done this week, we've brought all that forward in your packet materials. We have an adopting ordinance included as Exhibit 1 in your packet. And then we have Attachment A to that ordinance, which is the actual code itself, a new Title 24A. And Exhibit 2, in two different parts, 2A and 2B, just show the work behind that clean version that's attached to the ordinance. So we updated the amendment tracking matrix as well as provided a strike-through version of Exhibit 1 for you to see where the changes occurred in their exact form. Since the packet materials were published, we've been working hard actually with one of our esteemed citizens that I'm sure will be speaking at the public hearing this evening to continue to cycle through some comments that were made during public comment last week. And so after the public hearing, we do have one slide for you that have a couple of additional clarifications that were based on the public input that you received last week that make the code just that much better. So with that, Mayor, I think I'll turn it over to you. We can get on with the business of the public hearing, and then Miriam and I will be happy to walk through those three small additional changes after the public hearing. One last thing I'll say is we did include a staff recommendation in the agenda bill to look at option 1 in the alternatives presented. Based on what we're going to show you after the public hearing, we'd like to amend that to option 2, which would be to adopt the ordinance this evening as amended by council.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
All right, I am going to go ahead and open the public hearing. Thank you, Vita. Mary Wichter.
Does this count for another count on the pins?
101.
My name's Mary Wichter, and I still live at 408 208th Avenue Northeast in Sammamish. And I'm speaking for the public hearing tonight and would like to welcome our new city manager. I know New Mexico's a long way, but he said he's going to love the rain here. So thanks for interviewing and coming and taking the challenge. I did submit inputs last week, which were written, and they were considered by the staff. They also offered the opportunity for me to meet with them today, so we went over a few more things. And the one thing I wanted to talk about specifically with related to that is you may have remembered from a couple docket items, I tried to get on the docket with some small changes that needed to get done with maps and renaming a the Trails Bikeways Pathways Plan, and it was very hard to get small changes to be put through. So the code needs to work for small changes, medium changes, and large changes. And I think with, we don't need to have the errata sheet anymore, which couldn't really be done anyway because of the things that Miriam Leitner, as your new senior management analyst, had put in. She's kind of going to have a process and a new tool. So if you're reading the comp plan or a development code and you want to change, there'll be a tool where you can go online, input your things anytime during the year. There's a cutoff at August 1st, and then docket items would be considered. So I think that's a really good way to do it. And then other question I had is sometimes I hear that on the work plan there are certain items like a phase 2 of the development regulations or something, or some of the stormwater that isn't in the current thing upcoming, it would be done, but you don't really know if that's going to be on the plan. And since the new Title 24, the old one was just called Interim Comp Plan, the new title is called Comprehensive Plan and Development Regulation Amendments. So if you're a person or an organization and you want to have code amended, you actually need to go through the docketing process. So we talked about that today, and I said, well, do people check to make sure it's on the work plan or whatever? And as we talked today, I think if somebody wants to have something, the idea is that you would go ahead and submit a step 1, like an early docket, and then it would get looked at in August when city council's typically off, and then it would get incorporated either into something the city's doing or standalone, and it would give a real firmness for, is it on the work plan for stormwater public works? Is it on the work plan for planning? And I think that's a really good workaround. Other than that, I just wanted to review a couple things. The rewrite was brilliant, which got started by Jeff Thomas and has been completed recently by Miriam. The periodic update is something that you have to do every 8 years by RCW. The annual review, they don't really want you to do it more than once a year, but there is a provision for exceptions, and that could be expedited or expedited depending on what words they choose to do. I'd given some grammar corrections too. The only thing that can't be done every year is if you have a site-specific land use amendment. They're trying to limit that to you have to wait 2 docket cycles, so it'd be the 3rd docket cycle that you could submit it again. If you get past the step 1 where you get put, so you're considered for the docket, then in step 2 there'll be another form that you would fill out, and the city council can either accept, amend, or deny that motion. And just because you make it to the second thing doesn't mean that you're going through. So I think all the loopholes we had before got filled. I think this is a really great rewrite, and I hope that you will consider it, because if you adopt it, it could get used for this upcoming fall. So thanks for the work.
Thank you, Mary. Is there anyone else that would like to address the council? Is it as good as your last one? Oh, no.
I figure it was only eminent that I'd ruin my role I'm on with the mayor, but my comments on this comp plan update, I really don't understand the whole thing because it's such a weird process. You come in for the docket, then you got to go do a zoning change, but my overall thoughts on this whole 3 years coming back, I think that's kind of ridiculous. Why would you want to limit somebody 3 years when, you know, if they're always bugging you about stuff like me, you can just tell me no, like the next year, and then I come back again, just tell me no again. And the reason I say that is because things change from year to year to year to year. What if a developer says, hey, we're going to bring stormwater in and we're going to develop this plat or whatever, and you say, no, we don't want any more growth there. But what if the following year, all of a sudden, the stream is full of fecal column, and maybe his basin that he's going to put in was treat that, and maybe that's really important now. Well, guess what? That guy can't come back for 2 more years, and that fecal column is going to hit the lake. Same thing, what if you get growth targets that are super hard to absorb, and you know somebody might actually have a good place to put that growth or a good idea, and maybe it wasn't quite time a year ago when he came to you, but maybe things have changed. You got to absorb those growth targets. You don't want to spread them with infill throughout the city. Why not hear a proposal again? Maybe things will change as circumstances arise. So I just would hope that maybe that's a change you guys can make because it's easy to say no year after year, and maybe things will change. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to address the council? You're not coming twice, Paul? Okay. All right. I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing then, and I will turn it back over to Mr. Thomas.
Sure. And before we get to our couple of changes that we're going to put up on the screen, I would like the opportunity just to briefly respond to the public comment that was received. A couple of things specifically. Ms. Wichter brought up August 1st as being the cutoff. I'd like to just clarify, the code actually reads the first Monday of every August. So it may not always be the first day of the month, but it'd be sometime between the 1st and the 7th, I assume. So there was that, just for the record, to make sure we're clear on that. The second thing, Mr. Eastman's comment regarding receiving growth targets and needing to possibly go and look at the upzoning of property. So with our periodic update that occurs currently on an 8-year cycle with the state under Growth Management Act, the comp plan every 8 years is updated in concert with receiving of those growth targets. We don't receive new growth targets every year. So it's something that we run on this 8-year cycle, and we're able to go through that much broader, more holistic process of doing a major update to the comp plan on that cycle, which would include new growth targets received from the state on that cycle as well. So growth management, Title 24A, we're already set up to be able to do that effectively.
Councilmember Stewart?
Jeff, I appreciate that. But if I understand it correctly, if your request is denied, you have to wait 3 cycles to bring it back. Mr. Eastman spoke specifically about upzoning, but it could be any change, correct? So it could be, it's only for the upzoning changes that you have to wait?
Yeah, the waiting for the third docket cycle after your docket request is not granted. That is only for the for the land use map in the comp plan, for site-specific land use map amendment.
Downzoning as well, correct? It would be any zoning change.
It would be changes to that map, that's correct.
So I get that there's no driver from growth management targets or anything like that, but I guess it still doesn't really address the question of what's the rationale for waiting 3 cycles to bring any kind of change back? Because again, there could be a plethora of other types of changes that aren't specific to upzoning to those maps. So is there other rationale why we wouldn't allow them to come back more frequently?
So let me clarify again. It's one map in the comp plan. It's the land use map in the comp plan, right? That is the only map, figure, or text that is subject to that provision.
Right.
The waiting 3 docket cycles. Other text amendments, any other map that's in the comp plan could be brought back the following year if it's not docketed in the prior year. So really we're just talking about changes to that specific map. And as you correctly pointed out, those changes could be to intensify the future land use of a parcel, or it could be to make the future land use less intense. It could go either way.
It could also be other corrections, right? Like if someone submitted something and their submission was in error and it didn't make it through, right? If there's just an error. So I'm just trying to clarify.
It's only for that map, though. I just want to make sure we're all understanding that. It's one piece of paper in the comp.
So it's only for the map. So I could still request a downzoning. I just wouldn't be able to update the map.
Well, that would occur, the change of the future land use would occur on that map.
Correct. So again, what's the rationale for the 3 cycles, I guess, is really my question is
the rationale, a large part of the rationale is based on history, and the history after the comp plan was updated in 2015, we received a number of repeated requests year over year in 2016 and 2017, and we weren't getting changing circumstances with that year-over-year request. Those processes, those 2 docket cycles were, I would describe as very intensive, and they were very taxing on both the council, the public, as well as the staff. So putting this provision in, if the council in any given year receiving a site-specific land use map amendment request on the docket believes it's a good idea, it should be docketed and then should go through the legislative review for a final decision one way or the other. but we were trying to stem receiving those continuous year-over-year requests when, for whatever the reason may be, the council is not ultimately taking action to docket those requests for a legislative review.
I see. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Jeff, I have an additional question
Sure, yeah.
along this same line. You did kind of touch on part of my question, which was trying to understand from a staff time perspective, as well as I understand this goes through the Planning Commission too.
Correct.
Walk us through what one of these requests looks like from a time perspective for both staff, so that we can better understand, you know, are we talking 5 hours? Are we talking a lot more than that? And how many people may be involved in that? I mean,
Sure.
obviously there's a process that goes through the Planning Commission too, but.
So with the docket, so keep in mind, just to make sure, again, we're all speaking the same terms and language here. This is a two-step process to amend the comp plan. The first step is to actually have a request put on the docket then for legislative review. The second step is to actually perform the legislative review and ultimately have council take action on amending the comp plan one way or the other. So with the docket process, generally speaking, the docket process flows pretty smoothly. Last year, for example, I think we had, do you remember how many? 6, 5, 3 text amendments, and that docket process flowed pretty well. Staff time was not overly burdensome. It was included programmatically, in our work program, and we were able to successfully do that. When we get situations where we get a lot of site-specific land use map amendment requests on the docket, those definitely are more intensive. We've administratively set up to have folks come in for a pre-app meeting before they submit their request, so we can talk about the upshots and the downshots of potentially what they're thinking about submitting for, and to educate them about the process. And then depending on, a lot of it depends on public comment during that docketing process, right? We have a lot of folks that will contact us during the docket review leading up to both the Planning Commission and the City Council, so there's a lot of communication required, and that's a service that we're providing under growth management to allow our citizens. We don't charge for that, right? So, so that can definitely get intensive when we get into those types of requests. The legislative reviews, text amendments are free. We do charge for site-specific land use map amendment applications, so we do recover some of our cost on those. And again, so we actually haven't had one that we've taken through council in my 5 years here, a site-specific map amendment request. We have one that's in process at the moment, and we are learning a lot about the process as we begin our endeavor to bring that through the legislative review. But again, we are able to recover some of those costs based on our fee schedule. And, but so far, there's been a fair amount of work that's went into it, working with the property owners and their legal counsel, and we continue to do that.
So definitely a difference, though, in staff time between one that is docketed and one that is a docket application, though. So we docketed that one in the past. We haven't docketed them, so there's a distinction there. And then one thing I want to ask you about is other jurisdictions. My understanding is that actually many jurisdictions do have what has been proposed here, which is a lag in time. Are you aware of jurisdictions that take them on an annual basis? And
It's, it's a lot of it is hit and miss. In just speaking from direct past experience, the one phenomena that I had not experienced in my career before coming here was the year-over-year, going through a docket process, having a number of land use map amendment requests not be docketed and have all those same folks come back the next year. So that was a bit of an oddity for me to see for the first time after seemingly working forever. But how often will that happen again in the future? It's hard to say. But after experiencing that here once and, spending a lot of time talking with staff and with our legal counsel, we felt this provision was something, as you point out, some other jurisdictions do have the similar type provision in their codes. So we decided to propose that, and it successfully made its way through Planning Commission onto you for consideration.
very good. Councilmember Stewart.
Yeah, would a TDR request have to go through this docketed process then if someone applied for a transfer of development rights? Would that have to, because that would technically be a land use change?
TDR is not a zoning change
Okay.
or a land use map change.
All right.
TDR would be incorporated as part of a development application.
Okay, and again, so if I apply, but it does not get docketed, I can reapply the following year. It's only if it gets docketed that I have to wait, or if it doesn't get docketed, I have to wait?
So if you get docketed, there's no waiting. You just move
Okay.
on to the legislative review, step 2 of 2,
Okay.
right? If your site-specific land
Right.
use map request is not docketed, that's where the waiting period
Okay.
is.
And how did you come to the, basically you have to wait 3 years, right? Two more cycles. Why not just wait a year? Why so long?
The Planning Commission actually had some fairly good dialogue about that. And I believe, so Jeff probably would have recommended 20 years, but that didn't go anywhere.
That might be a little extreme, Jeff.
Yeah, but the Planning Commission did have some discussion, I believe, between 2 and 3. Yeah. Yeah, so there was some debate back and forth between 2 and 3, but we ultimately landed at 3 in their recommendation.
And don't recall what that specific rationale was, like why 3 instead of just 2?
Oh, sorry, I neglected to answer that part of your question. I do recall specifically some of that conversation focused around, changing circumstances and how long does it really take to have meaningful changing circumstances? It talked about the frequency of the periodic update cycle being 8 years, and how many times within that 8-year window before you get to some sort of area-wide consideration would be appropriate. So there were a few different conversation angles on that with the Planning Commission.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't see any more questions on that specific subject, so I guess now you can give us your
Okay.
rundown.
Lead it to you. There it is. Okay. So in your packet, the amendment matrix table, I believe, had a total of 29 items in it. So what we've got here are 2 new items, item 30 and 31, and then kind of a check and balance, a retake on item 22. So I'll just start from the top and work my way down. Item 22, which is just proposed to be redone here with that proposed code language on the right-hand side of your screen. Essentially, that language is currently in a single sentence in the code. And after talking it through with Ms. Wichter, as she mentioned, we did speak with her earlier today, and giving some further consideration to this, we decided to just break it out. It's essentially the same language, just reformatted in a different way to be a little bit clearer. Item 30, I believe, is just removing 3 words at the end of the sentence. And again, that was just to be a little bit clear that once something gets docketed, it will go through the review by council as possible amendments to the comp plan. The point there of removing for the year was that it was insinuating to some degree that it would be done in that same year as being docketed, which of course we all know doesn't happen. The docket is set for the next year's work program. And then recognizing in special circumstances, we may run into situations where we may have docketed items which may not make it through the legislative review process in that exact next year. It may take a couple of years to be able to work through something properly. And then the final amendment for your consideration this evening, over and above what's in your packet, is new item 31. I think we just added 1 word here, the word contingent, just to be consistent with the way we refer to city council contingent approval everywhere else in this chapter, and we neglected to provide that word in this particular case. So we just wanted to clean that up.
Very good.
Yeah, thank you.
Does council have any questions?
Planning Commission, though, for all the work that they did on this, so.
Okay, I don't see any questions, so I'd entertain a motion. Councilmember Ritchie?
Move to adopt with the amendments.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Discussion? Councilmember Ritchie, did you want to speak to your motion or not?
Nope, ready to move forward.
Okay. All right. All those in favor of the Title 24A as amended in items number 22, 30, and 31, as shown above, say aye, and please raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, by a vote of 6-0, it is approved. Thank you. Okay, next we're going to move to unfinished business. This is where we're going to deal with item number 7 on the consent. Councilmember Ross, you pulled this. Would you like to speak to that, please?
Yes, thank you. In our minutes, it references just the language related to section paragraph 1, reducing it from 5 feet to 4 feet. That's correct. But it doesn't rephrase the sentence that's later in the ordinance, paragraph 10, and that is related to cut slopes, not excavation. So I think the minutes, to be clear or to make sure that we get the ordinance updated correctly, is to make sure that we, on section 10, we reference the cut slope sentence with the changing from 5 to 4.
So, sorry, I'm not tracking which page of that.
So on page 4, maybe go back
Page
to
4.
the minutes.
Thank you.
Page 4 of the minutes, the third paragraph, I believe it is, there is a motion.
Okay.
And in that motion, it references language related to paragraph 1 only, and that's excavation, and it talks about reducing it from 5 to 4 feet. However, it doesn't reference the language in paragraph 10 that's cut slope greater than 4, make it 4 feet from 5 feet. So there's concern that the, I think we certainly approve both those paragraph changes in the meeting, so I think the minutes need to reflect both excavation going from 5 to 4 in paragraph 1, and that cut slopes in paragraph 10 change from 5 to 4, and reflect that in the minutes as an update.
So I see one of them. I don't see the paragraph 10 you're referencing
Right here.
in the minutes.
Here's we didn't reference it in the minutes, that's the problem. So that's the.
Oh, this is the document. That's what you're talking. Okay, so that's what's not here.
I'm
Okay.
referencing the ordinance, yeah.
Okay.
Mayor, if I may.
Yeah.
So this matter was actually brought to staff attention earlier today as well. And the city clerk did amend and republish the minutes for this meeting. So I just want to make sure the council is looking at the updated document that was republished earlier today online.
Yeah, Jeff.
And I can read it if that would
Why
help.
don't you read it to make sure we're.
So the paragraph that Councilmember Ross is referring to reads in the republished version of the minutes the following. Motion, let me put my glasses on actually. Motion, Councilmember Pam Stewart moved to amend SMC 1615-050 subsection 1 and subsection 10 to read, this shall not exempt any fill made with the material from such excavation nor exempt any excavation having an unsupported height greater than 4 feet after the completion of such a structure. Deputy Mayor Karen Moran seconded. Motion carried unanimously 6-0 with Councilmember Valderrama absent.
That's what I'm looking at too. Maybe that was part of my confusion.
And the concern is that language shall not exempt any fill from such excavation. That's language from paragraph 1. And then paragraph 10 is talking about cut slope greater than 5. So it leads to some confusion, I think. It's referencing 1 and 10, but it only references in the motion the language related to paragraph 1. That's the rub on this.
Okay.
Jeff,
Yeah, I was going to say, are you tracking what because he's got a document that the rest of us don't have access to. Are you tracking where he's talking about paragraph?
I believe, I don't have the language in front of me. I believe what Councilmember Ross is saying is the supporting language is only supporting subsection 1.
That's right.
As opposed to subsection 10. And I think what our clerk did earlier today was added subsection 10, as that was the intent of the motion, was to change that dial, that numeric dial in both places. Right. So I certainly see what Councilmember Ross is speaking to here, and I think you've got specific language to amend that. I think that would be appropriate for the council to just reflect that in the minutes.
Yeah, either get rid of the excavation language or just Well, I would just
Do
add
you-
the language in the new paragraph 10 like we did in section 1.
Yeah, I think if you can make a motion with the language, or maybe
Okay.
staff might be able to assist in that.
So I'm looking at how we did it. Well, we use that kind of abbreviation, so it's so related to section 10, it does not create, ... does not create a cut slope greater than 5 feet, something like that. Or 4
Four.
feet. 4 feet.
We're going the wrong way.
He walked right back into his own trap.
4 feet.
So I think we've got that. I think Lita has that here, so that's good. And we certainly understand the legislative intent of what's being done.
I second the motion.
Okay. Do we have any more discussion? Councilmember Valderrama?
No, right afterwards, I'll come back.
Okay, very good. All right. So all those in favor of amending the language in the motion for the minutes for May 7th, 2019, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, by a vote of 6-0, we have amended them. Okay, Councilmember Valderrama.
Good. While we're on this, this action number 7, the motion above it, as far as the rounding of the housing units that had taken place, I got dropped from the line and was not recontacted on, so I was not able to vote on this issue as it had taken place despite my requesting. So I'd like to make a motion reiterating the original motion to bring this back up again so that you can round up to 10 standard units as in the example and 1 additional standalone affordable home or a duplex.
Sorry, can you read your motion again?
So I'm going back and I'm reiterating the original motion that Councilmember Stewart had made, which is to alter 21A 25.0706 to modify
You're one
the
above
math
us. Okay.
of Section 6 to read if you have 9.51, you can round up to 10 standard units and 1 additional standalone affordable home or a duplex.
Okay. We have a motion on the floor.
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Councilmember Ritchie?
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what you're trying to do.
So I'm bringing back the original motion that was 3-3 and I was not able to vote on it. Well, this was now raised and we just did a motion on a minute. So I'm bringing back this because we've just made a motion on the minutes.
So you want to reopen up the issue that did not have or that failed to a 3-3?
That's correct. That's correct because I was absent and was not able to.
So, Mike, I do have a quick question. I have a question on that because there was another motion made then and we've already made a change. Can you speak to that just to help us?
This is not a thing of beauty, and I would consider, number one, that we should treat this as the next agenda item. So the one that came off the consent agenda to amend the motion, that is passed. Now, whether we take it up now or later on tonight's agenda, the council, you know, that there's a formal motion for reconsideration under Robert's rules. That would have to be made tonight by someone in the majority, and Ramiro wouldn't constitute that. But you also have that provision in your council rules that allows by majority vote a suspension of Robert's rules and to take it up. So if you want to do it that way, you certainly could do that this evening.
Mike, may I just intercede here? There is no majority, right? It was 3-3. So how does that, who is the party that has to bring it up?
So I was the one that was dropped from the line.
I get it, but
Hold
I mean,
on.
because there's no majority, I'm sorry.
In this case, it would be a member, one of the 3 who voted no because the motion failed.
Okay,
So
that's majority, even though it was 3-3, that it fails by lack of majority. Okay, thank you. So are we in order doing it this way? Parliamentary wise?
No, not unless we suspend the rules.
Mike, what's your take, please?
have to suspend, to be technically perfectly playing according to Hoyle, you need to suspend your rules, have a motion to suspend your rules, to take this matter back up, see if that motion passes by 4 or more votes, and if it does, take it back up, and if it doesn't, move on to the tip discussion.
So I moved to suspend the rules given my absence, which was inadvertent, and the city not able to call me back. A second?
We don't. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Now we can have discussion. Councilmember Valderrama, do you want to speak to your motion?
To
Or you
the-
feel like you already did?
Well, I already spoke to it, that I was participating, dropped. I sent an email asking to be reconnected. I was not reconnected and was not able to vote on this issue.
Okay, Councilmember Ritchie?
Yeah, so I'm trying to understand, we've suspended the rules, we're going to deal with this
No,
now.
we're voting on suspending the rules. That's what the debate is on currently.
Suspending the rules, then we
Okay.
go back like an amendment.
I understand. So
So first, we have to vote on the suspension of the rules before we
Correct.
discuss the
Yes. So
motion.
the motion on the floor is to suspend the rules.
I'm well aware what's on the floor. I'm trying to clarify what the process is by voting to suspend the rules and the what happens next question.
Then we vote on my motion.
No, yes, then he can make his motion again.
Okay. So we're
As
voting to suspend the rules so that we can make the motion now,
correct.
opposed to adding it to an agenda item later on. Okay, thank you.
Either way, it would have to be, we would have to suspend the
Either way.
rules.
Okay.
Okay. Councilmember Valderrama, you still have your light on. Do you have more or no?
Oh.
No, okay.
Okay.
Okay, Councilmember Ross.
Last time I supported it from the standpoint that one additional standalone unit probably won't be built, but leaving it there as an option if a builder so chooses would be a benefit. However, now I read the motion in front of us, it leads me to believe they can round up and that's not what I thought we voted on last time. It was either a duplex roundup, and the roundup unit would be a
Point of order. The motion is whether or not to suspend the rules. We're not
Okay,
talking
fair
about
enough,
what the
fair enough.
next motion may
Fair
be.
enough.
And
Okay, your
you,
point is
you're
well
right.
taken. Okay. All right, I don't have any of the lights on, so right now we are voting on a motion to suspend the rules. All those in favor of suspending the rules, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Nay.
I need hands, I didn't see. Okay.
Just two.
Are you nays or are you yays right now?
I can't see. I need hands. I need hands.
Which nays
All
are
those
you
in,
asking for?
for both. Let's do for both. All those in favor of suspending the rules, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Okay, opposed?
Nay.
Okay, by a vote of 4-2, we will suspend the rules. Okay. You need to make your motion again.
All right, so again, I make the motion that was previously cited by Councilmember Stewart to alter 21A 2507006 to modify the math in Section B to read, if you have 9.51, you could round up to 10 standard units and one additional standalone affordable home or a duplex. And then I was going to see, well, I'm interested to hear Councilmember Ross's take to make sure it's amenable to what.
I think the minutes here are probably incorrect as well, if I may. It's supposed.
I think we can ask for clarification
So
from staff.
The motion was supposed to be that you would be able to round up to 10, and that 10th unit would either be a standalone unit or a duplex. That's what the
Yes,
motion is
that's
supposed to be. So you are correct, Councilmember Ross. The minutes are not completely accurate.
Okay, Councilmember Ross.
Correct. They're not correct. The minutes. So it's either or a duplex or a standalone unit as the 10th roundup unit.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. In the second?
Okay.
has-
I
Chris,
second.
are you finished? Are you still? Okay. Councilmember Stewart.
Yeah, so I'd like to just clarify for folks. So at the last meeting, we discussed the fact that for it to be an affordable unit, affordability is defined as the house cannot cost more than 30% of someone's income, and the income would have to max out at 80% of the area mean income. I would like to point out that 80% of the area mean income for Sammamish is almost exactly the average salary of an Eastside Fire and Rescue employee. So what we're talking about here is, should a firefighter be allowed, or should we provide a no cost to the taxpayers incentive for builders to build affordable housing for our firefighters? Or anyone else who
We have to
makes
go by
that-
lights. Thank you.
or anyone else who makes that much money. And just so people are aware, when we say people who make that amount of money, I think Councilmember Hornish said, people who make that amount of money just need to face the reality. The area mean income for Sammamish is almost $160,000 a year. So 80% of that is $125,000. I think someone making $125,000, and actually the old area mean income, I'm sorry, I misspoke. The old area mean income was the average salary of a firefighter. The area mean income now is higher than that. The area mean income, I mean, I think someone making $125,000 should be able to afford a single-family home. And it's also my understanding that duplex homes have more complicated financing around them. So while I'm all for encouraging more affordable housing, and a duplex is great, and if a builder wants to build that, I think that's awesome. But if they wanted to build a single-family home that is affordable, it can't just be a single-family home. If that is going to enable more people to be able to purchase those homes, because a duplex home, as I understand it, is a multi-unit dwelling. And so there are some additional complexities around financing and agreements around that. So I think that at this point in time, we need to ensure that we are doing everything we can to encourage affordable housing. I think it also helps to fit in with character as well. If the lot is small, I would much rather see us put a single-family affordable home on there than try to squeeze a duplex in there that wouldn't necessarily fit within the character. So I feel like we're not saying it has to be a single-family home. We're providing a menu of options that says, if you want a bonus, it has to qualify as affordable housing. And here are the different options to make sure that we can do what makes the most sense for a given lot and a given circumstance. So I, for one, am very much in favor of providing a no-cost to taxpayer incentive to developers to develop affordable housing for our firefighters, our police officers, and our teachers.
Okay, Councilmember Ross. Oh, nope, sorry, Councilmember Ritchie.
Okay, so I'm trying to understand how, I think we're just deleting the word "and," right? It becomes...
Actually, it's the number. It would be 9 units and 1.
Standalone, affordable, and
right.
if affordable could be in quotes, that'd be cool.
Correct.
Because I mean, that affordable sends a lot of different signals, but I think the way you described it is what we discussed, home or duplex. And I thought the intention of this, please correct me if I'm wrong, Councilmember Stewart, this is your motion. The intention of this was to give the development community more freedom to put in what would be appropriate and not have us as government telling them what they had to do with, we're not in the development business. We're trying to create incentives for bonus, for affordable housing.
Correct.
When we don't have a lot of those opportunities to create those bonuses or those affordable opportunities. AMI affordable, let's, not
right.
really kid ourselves, affordable, really. So, but if this is what we're trying to do, should we be trying to tell them what kind of housing they can put in there? I think by creating a menu, we're giving the opportunity for that lot to be able to be divided in such a way that creates that opportunity to be created by the folks that know what they're doing the best, a developer. I mean, that's not me. I don't know what they do. So I think by us telling them they have a series of options, and those series of options can be A, B, or C or whatever, that creates more of an opportunity for something to get done rather than just mandating one thing, one option, which is, I think, what we have now.
Correct.
So I'm supportive of that because I think it creates more opportunity. It meets the market, frankly. It creates an opportunity for people to do what's available and what's sellable. And I think that's what we should be doing. So thank you for that.
Councilmember Ross. Oh. Go ahead.
Yeah. Boy, after Councilmember Stewart mentioned the median income, it gets us up to a pretty close to $1 million home. So are we really just rounding off a single family development? I think the intent, now that upon reflection and that information is that we really want to get more affordable housing units. That's why we had adopted the duplex provision, and I supported that.
I'm sorry, can you share your math with us on that, Councilmember Ross?
Well, it's going to be probably a mortgage of probably $600,000 now in my head, but that's not $1 million home. So it's probably.
How do you get to can you share the math to 600,000?
Well, that means you put it on the market for well, how do you do it? Okay, you have 160,000 you quoted. I'm using 160
No, it's
times.
80% of that.
80% of that is
And then they can only, and it can
Okay,
only,
we need to go by lights. I know we're trying to have a discussion, but
Yeah.
we
it
need
can only
to.
be
You asked me how I
30%
get it.
Councilmember
of
Ross has the
80%.
floor.
Yeah, you asked me how I got the number. I took 80% of 160, your number, got 120, and you have about 1/3 of your housing costs, which is about 3,500 something. And a mortgage, that supports a mortgage. I haven't run the mortgage numbers, but that's a pretty good mortgage.
Not following those.
Are you done, Councilmember Ross?
So
or-
I'm done. I think I wanted to open this to the floor. I wanted to give Councilmember Valderrama a chance to vote, so that's why I support suspending the rules so we can have a candid discussion. But I also am reflecting on the ultimate intent, and I think you persuaded me, quite frankly, is that we need more affordable housing units, and a duplex does just that. It adds two. So I'm at this point, I'm not going to support this as amended.
So, can I ask?
You have the, Councilmember Valderrama, you have the floor now.
Yeah. So I have first of all, before you, I have a question for Councilmember Ross. Would you be supportive if we dropped the single family and had a duplex? Because the 80% is.
No, we have that.
That was what the motion was. That's what we passed.
Yeah. So, but the 80% is what the county works on that number for affordable housing now. Some people think that that's too much too high. Even others say that that's not, but that is the standard that King County is working off, that we're working off on Habitat for Humanity homes and for.
No, the Habitat for Humanity homes are not the 30% of AMI. They're actually low income, so it's different.
Okay, well, but that's the standard number, the 80% that we're all working off of the standard of King County. Right now, we have a huge housing need for teachers, for firemen, for a lot of our professionals here, and this would be a first step in moving there. We can come back and visit this next year, but at least start making some motion towards getting that moving forward. So I would implore the council to move forward with this and show that we are trying to address this issue of affordable housing that we hear every day, and people say, what are you doing? Besides asking that your next construction have 10%. So this is a first step. Thank you.
Councilmember Hornish.
Yeah, number one, I don't think we can revisit every decision we make because we'll be here forever. Having said that, when this was made, the process was if we want affordable housing, a duplex is twice the number of affordable housing units than one. So let's try to give the incentive to have more affordable housing.
Okay, I'm going to speak to this since I haven't spoken yet. So when I read this motion, and I know that the language in our minutes is incorrect, and we're now looking at minutes that are incorrect and not the actual document here. But this says if we round at 9.51, we're going to get either 10 standard units, or we're going to get one or 9.5, and you'd have 9 market rate homes, and then you could have one standalone affordable home. We don't have the development, is that correct, Jeff? You're gonna have an either or. If you round, you're gonna build either a market rate house or you're gonna build an affordable house. Is that the option?
No, that was not the motion.
No, and
Or we
so
get 2 because the affordable house is considered a half. Is that correct?
the duplex counts as a 0.5 density, correct?
right.
So that's where you end up with one duplex, 2 units, or just 1 unit.
Right,
by itself.
but the scenario here is, or it says a standalone affordable home. That is not a duplex.
Correct.
So the option before us, and remind me what the motion was, it's this motion here, but in some sense. So what is the motion on the floor?
I would like to clarify if that's okay, Councilmember Valderrama.
please.
So the
Not her whose motion is it?
It's Councilmember Valderrama's.
Yeah, but I was going off of hers, and so she was going back onto it.
So Councilmember Stewart, just tell us what your,
So the motion is that if you are at, in the example, if you're at 9.51, you only get to round up to 10 if that 10th unit is either an affordable standalone home or an affordable duplex.
okay, so not a standard,
Not another standard market rate home.
Okay. So now I want to go back to my questions. How are we defining in code? We've always had that provision in code that allows somebody to use the affordable provision there, and that counted as a half unit, so technically you could build two anyway. Because we don't have these we had these documents in front of us last week. I don't have these in front of me now to go and reference again. Can you remind us on the affordable home, how is that defined in our code? Or is it low-income house that is defined in code that creates the half unit?
The duplex would, the duplex
I
counts
get the
as
duplex.
a 0.5, right?
I get the duplex part, but the standalone affordable house, what is that in our code? Is that actually a half, or is it a whole?
No, so it's the definitions of affordable in our code go by income. So the 80%, which has been referenced here a few times,
Right.
and then there's the low income definition, which is, I think we maybe have
30% of
a 50
80%
and a
of
30.
AMI.
30 is the very low income, right? So my understanding of this is that we were talking 80% AMI units when this conversation took place 2 weeks ago. So the question is, using the example that was here, the 9.51, so it'd be 9 market rate units, and then the one would either be one duplex or one single family detached affordable unit at 80%. That's what the council was discussing 2 weeks ago. The motion, or ultimately what was passed, was you could have one duplex as your 10th unit, right? That was the roundup.
Right.
And both of those units within the duplex had to be a minimum 80% AMI.
Okay.
The question that's been brought to the floor is whether the council wishes to modify that to put back in the option to have that 10th unit as one freestanding single family detached unit, also, which would be a minimum 80% AMI income.
So the difference being here, as far as affordable units go, we'll get 2 with the duplex, or we'll get 1. And granted, they've got a menu to choose from, but if our goal is to achieve more affordable units, we will get it with the provision that says duplex because they're building 2. Is that correct?
Beauty is in the eye of the beholder.
Okay.
It's how each of you wishes to interpret whether you're getting more or less out of an incentive that you put in the code.
Okay. Councilmember Stewart.
Jeff, is it correct that in order to sell a duplex, that the developer has to basically make it a condominium to be able to sell each side of the duplex separately, as opposed to the duplex unit sells together otherwise?
If you weren't utilizing some sort of zero lot line provision that would have the property line essentially going through the wall of that. So I believe you could use different provisions to achieve that. Sometimes duplexes are sold as an entity of itself on one tax lot. Sometimes you've got situations where, as you just pointed out, there could be a condominiumization situation where the unit itself is sold with the underlying land in some sort of joint ownership, or you've got a zero lot line provision where essentially you would have 2 separate lots, one structure.
And is there anything requiring it to be set up so that people can afford to purchase that they can purchase them individually and therefore can afford to do so? Because if they have to be sold together, then it becomes not affordable anymore. And then you get someone buying that and just becoming a landlord, and that defeats the purpose of the affordable housing, correct?
Right. So the city doesn't, to the best of my knowledge at least, the city does not prescribe how duplexes are to be treated in the open market. So if the builder of a duplex would have essentially those 3 options that I just walked through at their disposal for, well, 4 options. The 4th one would be the builder retaining ownership of that structure and that land. But there would essentially be those options, those menu of options for the builder of that structure to decide how to sell it or retain it.
So our affordable provision for duplexes doesn't really necessarily ensure that it goes out on the market in an affordable manner.
Well, no, it would be under this provision. The provision was that those units, those duplex units would have to be affordable. Now, whether those ended up being rental affordable units or they were sale affordable units, my understanding of what was done with those development regulations is those would be. How the builder of that structure decides to dispose, and I use that term in a sales sense, of those units would be up to the builder, but not, they would be affordable units, was my understanding of the language that was passed.
But, so maybe I'm sorry, but, so if they don't make it the zero lot line, and then therefore the unit gets sold as one, while each unit may be affordable, it would really be 60% of AMI, or of 80% of AMI, which means it's no longer affordable for someone in that income range, and therefore it's not going to necessarily be sold to someone in that income range. Is there any provision ensuring that these houses, that these units are sold to people in that income range? Because otherwise,
Yes, I believe I just answered that.
I'm sorry. Well, then I misunderstood.
The code, the way that was set up, my understanding was those were going to be mandated to be a minimum 80% AMI units. So the tools for doing that is there would be provisions placed on the title for each of those units that they are to be income restricted.
Okay.
Yes.
So that would mean that then that the developer would have to sell them separately. Otherwise, they'd have this duplex unit selling at a very low price.
Units that are required to be income restricted in the city of Sammamish are managed by Arch for us. So Arch has a whole infrastructure set up to ensure that those units transact at that, and then resales down the road are also income restricted as well.
Okay. I still support that our teachers and our firefighters and our police officers should have affordable single-family homes. So I still think it's appropriate to have these choices and not just require them to be duplexes only.
Councilmember Valderrama.
Yeah, no, I was going to reiterate that point that Councilmember Stewart said about the need again to address affordable housing. But I have a question for Jeff Thomas, which is the AMI. What is the AMI on King County? We've thrown out the 160, but I think you also prefix this by saying that's Sammamish. What's the King County AMI?
Unfortunately, I don't.
The AMI for King County?
That's the AMI we use.
Is the one
Okay,
for King
that's the
County?
AMI.
Oh, well, that's much lower. The AMI for King County is lower.
That's what I was saying, because I believe she cited Sammamish, but really King County has a lower number.
It is lower.
Well, but what is that number? Because I think that's what's throwing off Councilmember Ross in some of his calculations.
So, Councilmember Valderrama, I don't have that number memorized off the top of my head, but I mean, we can certainly get that for the council and bring it back.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to clarify that that number she was throwing out was Sammamish versus the King County AMI, which is a lower number. Okay, thank you.
Okay, I don't have any more lights on, so I'll go ahead.
I can answer that question, though, if you want. The 2018 AMI, actually, this is just giving me the 85% of AMI is for family of four is $85,000 for King County.
That's 85, not 80. Okay.
Okay. I don't have any more lights on. We'll go ahead and vote. So the motion.
Did you get that, Councilmember Ross? I want to make sure.
The motion on the floor then is.
Hold on, he's coming back.
He doesn't have a light on.
Okay.
The motion on the floor is the motion to reconsider this 9.51, and you would round up and you would get one additional standalone affordable home or a duplex. All those in favor, say aye and raise your hand, please.
Aye.
This is in favor of the...
In favor of...
For the motion with the affordable housing.
Okay.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay. We've split 3-3. The motion fails. Okay.
Wow.
All right, so we are now on to new business. We have a discussion of the draft 2020-2025 Transportation Improvement Plan. Mr. City Manager.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, Mr. City Manager.
Technical difficulties. Stand by.
Sorry about that. Good evening, Mayor, Council, Mr. City Manager. Cheryl Paston, Acting Public Works Director, Deputy also. To my left is Andrew Zagers, who's our City Engineer. So we are here tonight to give you the first look at the draft 2020-2025 Transportation Improvement Plan, or otherwise known as the TIP. I would like to emphasize the plan part of the title. It is a plan. It does not authorize any expenditures. Those come to you either individually or through the budget process. So again, this is just a plan. As some of you will remember, this is a requirement by the state that we adopt a 6-year plan that, again, just outlines what we plan to do in the ensuing 6 years. We do have to update it every year by July 1st, and then we have to submit it to the state within 30 days of adoption. And what it does, the projects that are on the list enable us to apply for state grants. So it's really important to put lists, all the projects that we think we may want to pursue in the next 6 years on the TIP, at least in terms of applying for state funding. So some of the changes between this year's TIP and last year's TIP, we have 3 new projects, which I'll discuss in a moment. We did update some of the costs based on either consultants' estimates or actual bids, which is the case for Southeast 4th. We are going to actually open bids on Issaquah Fall City Phase 1 this Thursday, so we're really looking forward to that one. In this spreadsheet, the blue highlighted projects are your concurrency projects. Again, those are they are comprised of intersections and then, of course, Sahalee. In terms of the new projects that were listed between or from last year, the first one you'll see there is Sahalee Way Northeast, 12th place to Northeast 25th Way. That is the rest of Sahalee. The first part of Sahalee is TR05, which you see is the first blue box, and that is from 25th to the North City limits. That one was on the 19 TIP, but just not funded. Or not funded, I'm sorry, it didn't show any cost estimates. And if you have any questions, I wasn't planning on going and describing each project. If you'd like us to do that, we certainly can do that. You'll see here Sahalee Way, this one right here that I've highlighted. This is also, SR 202 and Sahalee Way intersection study. That is a new one per the council's request at the last council meeting. And as we scroll down, let's see, the other new project is on the second page here. It is the intelligent, try to highlight it here. The ITS Phase 3 variable message signs and CCTV cameras. We are proposing to put those big signs that are over a road, and it gives you real-time traffic, or real-time travel times. So what we're proposing to do is put those signs near Inglewood and then Issaquah Pine Lake, so people can decide, do they go down Inglewood or do they go down Sahalee to get to Redmond? And then we are planning to install about 40 cameras at our intersections to be able to bring them into our traffic management center that we'll be constructing next year on ITS Phase 2, so we can bring those videos into City Hall and we can manage them remotely. So those are the 3 new projects on the TIP. Again, that's part of Sahalee, the 202 and Sahalee intersection study, and then ITS Phase 3. All the other projects, you've seen them. And then these here are the intersections that fail concurrency. And I think there was a question that came up yesterday, I believe, about the costs on the intersections that fail concurrency, and they are here on the one page. We will be bringing the revised version of the tip to you on June 4th, and in that version, we'll bring you the financial analysis. So that piece is not included yet because we wanted to get your input, and then we'll run the rest of the analysis. And then at that time, we'll also talk about the traffic impact fee and how much each project will be eligible for TIF. So there's a lot we'll bring to you on the 4th. And then you're scheduled to have a hearing for adoption of the TIF, of the TIP on June 18th.
Councilmember Stewart. Oh, sorry. Cheryl, were you done?
No, you're looking at my notes. Those are all the things I wanted to highlight.
Okay, perfect.
So thank you.
Councilmember Stewart.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. This is great work. I have two questions. One, so the study for the intersection at Sahali and 202, is it required that studies like that be put on the tip? Is that how we typically do it? Is that required, or it's just here so that you made sure that we addressed it? Is that?
Yeah, it is not required to put on. A lot of these are not required to be, but again, if any of them, if we're possibly going to apply for any grants, it needs to be on this list.
Got it. Okay.
And it's also a comprehensive list of the actions and projects that we want to take on. So it is convenient just to put everything on this one list. But we can break it out and have separate lists if you like.
So is it only capital expenditure type things? Because I don't see things like our transit study on here, like our intra-city transit study. Is it on here?
These, I believe, are supposed to be capital only.
Okay,
Yeah,
great.
Yes.
And then my last question is, in regards to the project for the sort of the command center and the message signs. So I like the idea of the command center. I know that's a great way for you guys to be able to monitor the lights and things like that. But how much of that is the travel time message boards? Because I'd venture to say that 98% plus people have apps that tell them their travel time. So I'm wondering how much value there is in us spending money on a sign that gives you travel time when something on my phone's probably telling me that there's an alternate route that's going to save me 3 minutes already.
So that is a good point. I'll break out the costs.
Okay.
I guess I would caution people with texting and.
Well, no, it wouldn't be texting. If you just put in your destination, it's going to tell you when there's an alternate route that saves you time.
That's true. If you have it already up and running as you're driving and it's audibly telling you.
Yeah.
Certainly. But we'll break out the cost.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And I guess Andrew wanted to say
I
something.
think another thing about the variable message boards, it also is good for emergency services or anytime we need to get an immediate message out. We have that option to post that, similar to what Issaquah does on East Lake Sammamish Parkway, or they also have one in Issaquah Falls City, where they need to get a message out right away. They can post it immediately.
Okay. Yeah, it'd still be interesting to see those costs just in terms of priority. So thanks.
Councilmember Ross.
Thank you. Cheryl, I'm trying to understand some of the math, which will probably help my understanding on the table overall. I'm going to use TR1 as an example. There's a total of 6-year total of $8.1 million. There's no future year Fund 340 cost, and then the total is $20.1 million. Would that imply there's prior years of $12 million? How does that work?
That's actually Southeast Fourth, so the past years would have been what we're spending this year for construction, and also all the previous years for design and the right-of-way. So this project Fourth is actually finishing in 2020, so hopefully we'll be done with it and won't have to go back.
So there is prior year cost, about $12 million is what this implies.
That's correct.
Could we put a prior year cost column so that we can always, that way we validate the math horizontally? And then when you go vertically, and I just both did the total fund 340 total cost and ran my calculator and off a little bit, about 96,000. And then I did the same for the 438 total costs off by, actually it's 2663, so I think you're picking and choosing rounding or not in the totaling.
Could be.
So
Well, I'll double check on that.
When you do the final, can you,
Certainly.
it would really help if you put the prior, horizontal, and then foot and cross foot. I'm sorry, I'm an accountant from early years, and
No, actually, that's a good reminder. And Lita reminded me of something that I asked her to remind me in case I forgot. So in the agenda bill, I mistakenly read the wrong column, and I said that the 6-year tip was this number here, which is actually the total project cost. The 6-year tip estimate is a hair over 145 million. I mean, still big dollars, but it's not the same as 228 million.
yeah, thank you.
Councilmember Hornish.
Yeah, in general, I think it's a good starting point, so thank you. I'm anxious to see the numbers at the bottom for the funding and kind of where we're thinking we're going to get the funding and how it marries up. Question I have is, with the 6-year 146, or 145, as you're showing it here right now, if our funding is coming short, is it fair to say that the priorities would be the blue concurrency projects?
By state law, we do have to address our concurrency failures, so yes.
So if we can't make the funding meet, then we have to set priorities, which budget, you never have as much money as you'd like.
That's right.
So I guess that's a further discussion to come. All right, thanks.
Right, and in the agenda bill, I pulled the text out of the comprehensive plan that talks a little bit about, if there are funding shortfalls, what are some of the options? So there's certainly, yes, cutting projects, that's certainly one. Being really aggressive in chasing after grants.
Yeah.
We've been pretty successful in that, certainly on the stormwater side, and definitely on, for example, Issaquah Falls City. We received a $5 million grant, and then Southeast Fourth, I think, it's a $4 million for Southeast Fourth. So,
well, but that's a discussion I think we're going to have.
Yes, we will have that on the 4th.
How reasonable our assuredness is to have that funding actually available in that next 6 years, correct?
Right.
And if not, then we may have to pull some projects off.
That's correct.
To have those things marry up. All
That's
right.
correct. And we'll have that discussion on the 4th.
Fair enough. All right.
Councilmember Valderrama.
Yeah, I'm just continuing on that, then the other option is, again, Cheryl is revisiting the level of standards on different roads as well as one of the options that we're going to look at. Going back to the issue of the intersections at 202 and Sahali, have you had discussions with WSDOT? Because they're doing a study that we had obtained funding for that is supposed to be looking at 202 and Sammamish. Are they looking at that intersection as part of that? Because I understood that's what we tasked them to do, was to start looking at Sammamish, 202, the lights, and what modification improvements can be made. And wouldn't a lot of this be covered in that study?
They are. We're actually going to be talking to them this week on what the results are or where they're at. WashDOT will be here on, I believe, June 6th or 3rd, the first meeting in June, to discuss their results of what they've determined for their study. It was a limited scope, obviously, with the amount of dollars they received, but they have some proposed small fixes and then also long-range goals. And we'll know a little bit more as we talk to them this week and then get ready for the presentation in June.
Okay, and I understand this list can be modified, as Cheryl had mentioned earlier, and just as when we get the TMP, there's going to be significant changes that will take place on our road networks as we start to adjust that. Likewise on this, if that is part of the study already being done, then we would adjust that accordingly. Okay, thank you.
I have a few questions, and I guess I'll start with that 202 interchange. So at least my rudimentary understanding of this study that was funded through the legislature is not going to look up into Sammamish. So I think my ask in that studying that 202 Sahali interchange would be to understand, if we do something to that intersection, what is the upstream impact? And that's not something that the study will look at, but would be a nice complement then to that study that the legislature, that we'll hear about early next month. And then I had a couple of other proposed maybe changes. So Issaquah Pine Lake Road, which is TRO2, we have it on this tip clearly construction overlapping with construction on Issaquah Falls City Road. And so the reality of these two projects overlapping is an impossibility for our south end of the plateau. So I would highly recommend, if our intent is to move forward with phase 2 of Issaquah Falls City Road, that we move Issaquah Pine Lake Road that way to the right on the timeline, because we cannot have those two roads under construction simultaneously.
That's right. Maybe you could talk about that.
I think that's all I had as far as questions. So.
We agree with that. Obviously, every time we've been looking at this tip, we've been trying to align Issaquah Falls City with the Issaquah Pine Lake projects. Issaquah Falls City, Cheryl mentioned, we do have a grant. It was split between each phase.
Right.
I had a discussion with WashDOT today. The second funding is available in the year 2022, and that's why we were showing Issaquah Falls City and Issaquah in 2023. So that there is a time limit on that funding that we have that will have to be addressed as we get closer to that project.
Sure. I guess I just wanted to make sure that we weren't overlapping those projects.
That wouldn't be a pretty sight.
Yeah, no. They would secede down there. Okay.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Mayor. One thing I wanted to comment on what you suggested, and yes, we certainly are sensitive to how much of the city will get locked down, or not locked down. It'll really be impacted by these very, very large, very much needed projects. It does cause a pretty significant balloon in the total, as you very well imagine, in the out years. But then again, it is the out years, so we have a few years to kind of massage those projects, the ones that maybe we can slide even further beyond the 6 years. We certainly have that ability as well, but it does cause a pretty big balloon at the end of the 6 years.
Yep. Okay, Councilmember Valderrama.
Yeah, just a point of clarification, and obviously the study is what the study will be, but to remind, the original language that then Representative Judy Clinborn, head of transportation, and Senator Dino Rossi pushed was specifically for Sammamish 202-520. So if it doesn't include it, I'd be stunned, because that's one of the two routes out. Thank you.
Oops. Okay. I don't see any more feedback unless you guys have additional questions for us.
I had one more. I'm so sorry.
Councilmember Stewart?
Yeah, the restriping, sorry, now I lost it again, darn it. That's what happens when I zoom in and out. I thought I saw the restriping down at the end of Sahalli, but I thought, and that had a cost associated, but I thought that was being covered by King County.
No, we are still going to pave. King County will repave.
Okay.
We'll still cover the restriping costs.
But it was also at a further year out, and I thought that was happening this year. Did I misread that?
It is, and that actually I think is an operational cost.
Okay. So that may not need to be on here at all, right?
No.
Okay,
And
that would be great.
And it's this year, and this tip starts next year.
Correct. Okay, great. So there'll be zero cost on that one.
For
this year.
No, we are going to stripe it this year.
We will. Next
but the
year,
tip
not.
That's what I
starts
mean.
for 20.
It will be zero cost on the 2020 tip.
Well, it wouldn't have been on the tip anyways, because it's an operational cost, not a capital cost.
Okay, but I thought I saw it on here. That's why I was, or was it a
if it
different
was,
restriping project that I?
Let's see.
And I had it, and then I zoomed out and I lost it. I'm sorry. Dang it. Oh, well.
Yeah, no,
when I find it, I'll email it to you. It's fine.
Okay, that'll work.
Okay.
So the only change then is, from what I understand, is Issaquah Pine Lake Phase 1 move the $7 million in 2022 and the $7.4 million in 2023 to the out years.
Yeah, I would just move it so we're
Just
not
move
overlapping construction
Sure.
on the two roads.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I don't have any more lights on up here,
Right.
so thank you for putting this together. We look forward to the financial part next
Thank
time.
you.
Okay. Do we want to take a break before we dive into council reports, or we just want to plow through them and get out of here?
Let's get out of here.
Okay. So I think As far as the AWC annual meeting, we may have 3 voting members present at the event, and we've had more than 3, I think, offer up interest. So we just need to decide who our 3 voting members will be. Councilmember Ritchie is having to exit, but he did let me know that he will not be a voting member there, so we do not have to worry about Councilmember Ritchie as far as one of those voting members. So can people just maybe put their lights on if they are interested in being a voting member at AWC? All right, we got Councilmember Ross.
Romero, yeah. Wasn't it?
The Deputy Mayor Moran also had
3?
expressed some interest. So if there's only the 3 of you, then this is going to make it really painless.
There we go. Done.
No, we've got to argue this.
And Karen. That's 3.
That's 3 voting
done.
members.
Good. Now
3 equals 3. We're good.
The question that I have, though, is that if we have 4 council members present, even if there's only 3 members, because we'll have 4 members there, is that considered a public meeting, or can the city simply notice it so that we don't have an issue over there?
Shouldn't have an issue because the act would apply to discussion of city business.
Sure.
AWC shouldn't be that Sammamish.
We've done that several times.
Very good. I don't think I had any. I think the only thing that's not on my report, which was last night, was I did attend the Citizens for Sammamish meeting. Councilmember Hornish was there as well, and I think Mr. Stickney was kind enough to highlight a few things there, but I can email you specifics. There was some questions about the candidate forum specifically, and if the city will be participating in broadcasting a forum again. So, all right. The Deputy Mayor has her report there. Don't need to read it. Councilmember Stewart, is there anything you need to highlight on your report?
Since we talked a lot about homes, I just want to give another shout out to Habitat for Humanity. It was a great event, the Women's Build event this year. We got great weather, which was really lucky because the following weekend was not. There will be a community event on June 22nd, and I encourage everyone to come and welcome our new neighbors. It's not often that people are required to put in 250 hours of labor into their homes. So these folks are very invested in the community, and what I think may have struck me most is how many Habitat for Humanity community members from other communities continue to devote time and volunteer their time to so many different communities. There are many people there who come year after year and are all over, go all over the region and donate their time. So I'm really excited for these folks to come here. One of the homeowners that I was working with, his oldest got a full ride scholarship to a private college in Minnesota, and he's studying neuroscience. So I just want to let folks know that if you're ever worried about what kind of people are moving in, rest assured, I'm happy if more neuroscientists live in Sammamish. That's fine with me. So great people and a great event. So thanks.
Does anyone else have a council report? Okay, Mr. City Manager, you're up.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. Just a quick one tonight. We are in the process of hiring a new IT director, which is really great news. We have made an offer. The offer was accepted. So this person will be joining us June 20th will be their first day. I want to especially thank Steve for all this effort and all this help through our times that we've had here in the past. And there is some monies and funding we need to provide to Steve, but that'll take care of him for the rest of the time that he's here. And I'm also, and staff's also very appreciative of him staying on until the new person comes and helping that person, get acclimated. We think we have a very, very good candidate, and we're very, very happy to receive them starting June 20th. So that ends my report for this evening.
Very good.
Mayor and council members.
I move to approve the $2,000. That's the only thing we need to approve? It says does require council action.
I don't think it requires this.
No,
It says right on the
does,
bottom.
But I thought maybe we
Don't need to.
don't
It's I wouldn't think you
Okay,
would.
it's under a sign of
All right, fair
authority.
enough.
I think
Yeah.
it was a typo at that time.
Uh-huh,
But
okay.
I'm glad you brought it up. I'm glad you brought it up. But yes, for that a minimal amount of money, I have the authority.
Yep.
I'll up your motion and I move to adjourn.
I would move to executive session.
But let me ask about an executive session. Do we have an executive session first?
We're missing two.
Well, we talked about it 2
members.
weeks ago to follow up.
Right.
So I'd like to have it if we could.
Okay.
With Rick on board now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right, we did talk about that.
Yeah.
So, Mike, I need the RCW. 10-1I. Okay. How about 30 minutes?
No, can we do it 15 max?
Well, if we can say 30 and we can get back out
No,
here sooner.
because don't we have to wait then if we say
We had
30?
some-
Okay, we'll do it 15 and if we need to
Thank you.
extend. Okay.
You don't have to wait.
Yeah. Yeah. Not have to wait.
Yep, so.
So I'm really sad that you know that by heart.
Now can I move to adjourn? I move to adjourn.
Second.
Seconded. I'm assuming there's absolutely no discussion. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, by a vote of 6-0, we are adjourned.
I don't know what's
Or 5.